My son told me to stop talking to my grandkids. Those words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I never thought the child I raised would become my greatest source of pain. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would share. And if for even a second this feels familiar, I only ask that you like this video and subscribe. It will help me keep opening my heart. My name is Margaret, and I'm 73 years old. I live in a small one-bedroom apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, where the rent costs more than most people make in a month. The walls are thin, and I can hear my neighbors arguing about money, about kids, about life. But nothing prepared me for the silence that would soon fill my own home. Every morning, I would wake at 5:30, before the city fully stirred to life. The smell of coffee brewing mixed with the distant hum of garbage trucks making their rounds. I'd stand by my kitchen window, watching the early joggers in Central Park, their breath visible in the crisp morning air. I'd prepare breakfast, not just for me, but hoping, always hoping, that my grandchildren would surprise me with a visit. Tommy, my 8-year-old grandson, loved my blueberry pancakes. Sarah, she's 11 now, preferred scrambled eggs with cheese. I kept both ingredients stocked in my tiny refrigerator, even when money was tight. Even when I had to choose between buying groceries and paying for my blood pressure medication. The photographs on my mantelpiece told the story of better times. There's one of Michael, my son, when he was 7 years old, gap-toothed smile, holding a baseball glove I'd saved 3 months to buy. Another shows Sarah taking her first steps in my living room, arms stretched toward me, pure joy on her chubby face. Tommy's school picture from last year sits next to it. He'd lost another tooth, just like his father at that age. But lately, when they visited, their smiles seemed forced. Sarah would barely look up from her phone. Tommy would ask if he could watch television instead of helping me bake cookies like we used to. And Michael, my son, the man I'd sacrificed everything for, would hover by the door like he couldn't wait to leave. The worst part was the silence. Not the comfortable quiet we used to share while doing puzzles together, but the heavy, suffocating quiet of unspoken resentment. I could feel it building like storm clouds over Manhattan, dark and threatening. That Tuesday in October started like any other day, except it didn't. I'd been looking forward to our weekly lunch at the little diner on West 79th Street. It had become our tradition after Michael's divorce, him, the kids, and me sharing stories over bottomless cups of coffee and chocolate chip pancakes. But at 11:30 that morning, my phone rang. "Hi, Mom." Michael's voice was flat, businesslike. "We're not going to make it today." I gripped the phone tighter. "Is everything okay? Are the kids sick?" "No, they're fine. We have other plans." Other plans. The words hung in the air like smoke. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Well, maybe we could reschedule for tomorrow. I bought ingredients for Tommy's favorite brownies." The pause stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. "Mom, we need to talk. But not today. I'll call you later." He hung up before I could respond. I stared at the phone in my hand, the dial tone buzzing like an angry wasp. Outside my window, life continued as normal. Yellow cabs honked their way down Amsterdam Avenue. People walked their dogs, carried their groceries, lived their lives. But inside my small apartment, something fundamental had shifted. I spent that afternoon baking brownies anyway. The familiar ritual of measuring flour, cracking eggs, stirring chocolate chips into the batter. It kept my hands busy and my mind from wandering to dark places. The brownies came out perfect, golden brown and smelling like childhood memories. I wrapped them in aluminum foil and placed them on my counter, waiting. Michael didn't call that night, or the next day, or the day after that. Let me tell you about the sacrifices I made for my family, not because I want your pity, but because I need you to understand how deep this betrayal cuts. When Michael was 16 and got arrested for shoplifting, I spent my entire savings account on a lawyer. $8,000 I'd been saving for a new car, gone in a week. I rode the subway to work for 3 more years, my feet swelling in cheap shoes because my son needed help. When he graduated high school with barely passing grades, I worked double shifts at the hospital where I was a nurse's aide to pay for community college. 70-hour weeks, my back aching, my hands raw from sanitizer and cleaning supplies. But I believed in him. I believed in his potential. When Sarah was born and Michael's first wife left him, who do you think watched that baby every day while he went to work? Me. I changed diapers, walked the floors at night when she was colicky, sang lullabies until my voice was hoarse. I was 64 years old with arthritis in my knees, but I did it gladly because that little girl was my world. And when Tommy came along 3 years later, after Michael remarried, I did it all over again. 2 toddlers in my small apartment, toys scattered across every surface, goldfish crackers ground into my carpet. I loved every chaotic minute of it. Mom, can you watch the kids this weekend? Jennifer and I need some time alone. Mom, could you help with rent this month? Things are tight. Mom, the kids need winter coats. You know how expensive they are. I said yes to everything. Every request, every demand, every last-minute emergency. When my own furnace broke one February and I couldn't afford to fix it, I wore 3 sweaters and heated my apartment with the oven rather than ask Michael for help. He had enough to worry about with his own family. But the requests kept coming, and the gratitude became scarcer. You're being dramatic, Mom, Michael would say when I mentioned feeling taken for granted. We appreciate everything you do. But his eyes would dart away when he said it, and his voice carried that edge of impatience that made my chest tighten with familiar hurt. The breaking point came on a cold Thursday in November. I'd been fighting a nasty cold for a week, the kind that settles in your chest and makes every breath feel like work. I called Michael to ask if he could pick up some groceries for me. Just milk, bread, soup. Basic necessities because I was too dizzy to navigate the subway stairs safely. Mom, I can't today. Jennifer has book club, and I promised to drive the kids to soccer practice. Can't you just order delivery? Delivery groceries cost twice as much as shopping myself, and he knew my budget was tight. But more than that, it wasn't really about the groceries. It was about needing my son to care whether I lived or died. I spent that day sipping lukewarm tea and staring out at the gray November sky, wondering when I'd become such a burden to the people I loved most. The cruel words came in small doses at first, little cuts that didn't seem intentional but left scars just the same. Mom, you worry too much. The kids are fine without you hovering all the time. Jennifer thinks it's better if we establish some boundaries with extended family. You need to understand that things are different now. We have our own way of doing things. Extended family. As if I wasn't Tommy and Sarah's grandmother, but some distant relative whose involvement was optional. My birthday that year was forgotten until 3 days later, when Sarah called to apologize in a voice that sounded coached. Sorry we missed your birthday, Grandma. We were really busy with school stuff. School stuff. I'd attended every school play, every science fair, every parent-teacher conference when Michael couldn't make it. But now I was an afterthought, a footnote in their busy lives. Christmas was worse. I'd been planning for months, saving a little each week to buy presents I knew they'd love. A new baseball glove for Tommy, art supplies for Sarah who'd started drawing. For Michael and Jennifer, I'd found a beautiful picture frame for the family photo I'd been hoping they'd take. But when Christmas morning came, I was alone. They'd gone to Jennifer's parents' house in Connecticut without even telling me. I found out from Sarah's Instagram post, a photo of the whole family in matching pajamas, opening presents around a massive tree. I sat in my apartment that Christmas day, surrounded by wrapped gifts I'd never have the chance to give, eating a microwave dinner and watching old movies. The silence was deafening, but the worst was yet to come, the discovery that would shatter what remained of my trust. I'd been watching Tommy and Sarah one afternoon in January while Michael and Jennifer went to a marriage counselor. Yes, I knew about their problems before they told me. Children hear everything, and they'd been whispering about Mommy and Daddy fighting. While the kids napped, I decided to tidy up their playroom. It was a mess of Legos and coloring books, the kind of beautiful chaos that comes with children. As I straightened Sarah's desk, I found a folder of school papers she'd left behind. But tucked between her math homework and a book report was something that made my blood run cold. A bank statement. Michael's bank statement, with his name and address clearly printed at the top. My hands shook as I read the numbers. The checking account balance was over $15,000. The savings account showed nearly $30,000. And there, highlighted in yellow marker, a deposit from last month. $2,000 from Margaret Sullivan Emergency Fund. Emergency Fund. The money I'd given them for Tommy's supposed medical bills after he'd fallen off his bike. The money I'd scraped together by canceling my cable, switching to generic groceries, and skipping my annual mammogram to save the copay. There had been no medical bills. Tommy's bike accident had resulted in a scraped knee and bruised ego, nothing more. They'd lied to me, manipulated my love for my grandson to fund what looked like a vacation based on other deposits I recognized. Hotel charges from the Hamptons, restaurant bills from places I couldn't afford to dream of eating. I sat on Sarah's tiny chair, that bank statement in my trembling hands, and felt something die inside me. Not just my trust, but my illusions about who my son had become. The little boy who'd cried when he accidentally stepped on a beetle had grown into a man who could lie to his elderly mother's face and steal her grocery money. The confrontation happened 3 days later. I'd spent those days rehearsing what I would say, how I would approach it. I wanted to give Michael a chance to explain, to apologize, to prove that this was some terrible misunderstanding. He came to pick up the kids on a Sunday evening, looking tired and distracted. Jennifer waited in the car, engine running, clearly eager to get home. "Michael, we need to talk." Something in my voice made him look up from his phone. "What about, Mom?" I held up the bank statement. His face went white, then red, then settled into that defensive expression I remembered from his teenage years. "Where did you get that?" Sarah left it in her school folder. "Michael, you told me Tommy needed medical treatment. You said you didn't have the money for his doctor bills." "It's complicated, Mom. You wouldn't understand. Try me." He sighed. That put-upon sound that made me feel like I was the unreasonable one. "Look, we did have expenses. Not medical ones, but still expenses. The kids needed things. Jennifer's been stressed about money." "So you lied to me?" "I didn't lie. I just simplified the truth." Simplified the truth. I'd raised this man to be honest, to take responsibility for his actions. When had he learned to speak in corporate euphemisms? "You took my grocery money to pay for a vacation in the Hamptons." His jaw tightened. "We needed that time away. Our marriage has been under stress, and the kids needed to see us happy." "And what about what I need, Michael? What about my stress?" "Mom, you're being dramatic. It's not like you're starving." The casual cruelty of that statement took my breath away. Not like I was starving. As if my struggles were insignificant, my sacrifices meaningless. "I skipped my mammogram to give you that money." For a moment, just a moment, I saw the boy I'd raised flicker across his face, but then his defenses slammed back into place. "That's your choice, Mom. I never asked you to do that." "You never asked me to do any of it, Michael. But I did it because I love you, because I thought you loved me too." "I do love you, but love has limits. You can't just buy your way into our lives all the time." "Buy my way in." The words hit like a slap. Every sacrifice I'd made, every dollar I'd given, every sleepless night I'd spent worrying about their problems, reduced to bribery in my own son's mind. "That's what you think I've been doing?" "Mom, you have to admit, you use money to control situations." You offer to pay for things so you can have opinions about how we live our lives. I stared at him, this stranger wearing my son's face, and realized I didn't know him at all anymore. Get out. Mom? Take your children and get out of my house. He called my name as I walked to my bedroom and closed the door. I heard him gathering the kids' things, heard Sarah asking why Grandma was upset, heard Tommy crying because he didn't understand what was happening. I heard the front door close, and then silence. I didn't cry that night. The hurt was too deep for tears, buried so far down it felt like a physical weight in my chest. Instead, I sat by my window, watching the city lights twinkle like distant stars, and tried to figure out where I'd gone so wrong. The weeks that followed were eerily quiet. No Sunday visits, no emergency phone calls, no requests for money or babysitting. My apartment felt too small and too large at the same time, cramped with memories but empty of purpose. I waited for Michael to call, to apologize, to explain. I waited for the children to ask when they could visit Grandma again. I waited for some sign that our family could be repaired. Instead, I got a text message on a Tuesday morning in February. Not even a phone call. A text. Like I was some acquaintance who didn't deserve the courtesy of his voice. Mom, Jennifer and I have been talking. We think it's best if you don't contact the kids for a while. They're confused about what happened, and we need time to help them process everything. We'll reach out when we're ready. I read that message 17 times, each reading making it more surreal. Don't contact the kids. Don't contact my own grandchildren. As if I were some kind of threat, some dangerous influence they needed protection from. I called immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. I called again an hour later. Same result. I tried the house phone. Disconnected. I drove to their apartment in Queens, but the doorman wouldn't let me up. Sorry, Mrs. Sullivan. Orders from the tenant. Orders from the tenant. My son had given orders to keep me away from my own grandchildren. That afternoon, I went to Legal Aid on the Lower East Side, a cramped office that smelled like coffee and desperation. The lawyer, a young woman named Sandra, who looked like she was barely out of law school, listened to my story with professional sympathy. Mrs. Sullivan, I understand this is devastating for you. But legally, parents have the right to control who has access to their children. Unless there's evidence of abuse or neglect. They're abusing me, I interrupted. Doesn't that count for something? Sandra's face softened. Emotionally, yes. Legally, no. Grandparents' rights in New York are very limited. You'd need to prove that denying you access to the children is harmful to their best interests. Of course it's harmful. I've been part of their lives since the day they were born. I know, and I'm sorry. But the courts generally side with the parents' wishes, unless there are extreme circumstances. Extreme circumstances. My love for Tommy and Sarah, my years of caring for them, the bond we'd built through bedtime stories and scraped knees and art projects, none of that mattered in the eyes of the law. I walked home through Central Park that day, past the playground where I'd pushed Sarah on swings, past the pond where Tommy and I had fed ducks last spring. The city felt hostile for the first time in decades, full of strangers who couldn't possibly understand the hole that had been torn in my life. But giving up wasn't in my nature. If Michael wanted to play games, if he wanted to punish me for standing up for myself, then I'd find another way to let my grandchildren know I still loved them. That's when I remembered the teddy bear. 3 years ago, when Tommy was going through a phase of nightmares, I'd bought him a brown teddy bear from a toy store in Soho. Nothing fancy, just a soft, cuddly bear with a red ribbon around its neck. But what made it special was the hidden pocket I'd sewn into its back. A secret compartment where Tommy could keep his treasures. A special stone from Central Park. A ticket stub from his first Yankees game. Little mementos that mattered only to him. Tommy had named the bear Guardian, and it had lived on his bed ever since. Through his parents' divorce, through moving to a new apartment, through all the changes and chaos of his young life, Guardian had been his constant companion. Michael and Jennifer might be able to keep me from visiting, from calling, from seeing my grandchildren's faces, but they couldn't monitor every toy in their house. They couldn't search every pocket and hiding place in a little boy's bedroom. I spent 2 days crafting the perfect message. Not too long. I didn't want to overwhelm Tommy if he found it first. Not too accusatory. I wouldn't put him in the middle of adult problems. Just something to let them both know that Grandma still loved them, still thought about them, still hoped to see them again someday. The final message was written on a piece of rice paper in my smallest handwriting. My dearest Tommy and Sarah, I think about you every single day. I love you more than all the stars in the sky and all the fish in the ocean, just like I used to tell you at bedtime. I hope you're being kind to each other and working hard in school. I'm proud of you always, no matter what. I hope someday we can bake cookies together again and go feed the ducks in Central Park. Until then, know that you carry my love with you wherever you go. Forever, your Grandma Margaret. I folded the rice paper into a tiny square and sealed it in a small plastic bag to protect it from dampness. Then came the hard part, getting it into Tommy's bedroom. Jennifer worked at a boutique in Soho on Saturday afternoons. Michael coached Little League on Saturdays. The kids would be with the babysitter, a teenager named Maria who lived in their building. I'd met her several times, a sweet girl who was studying nursing at Queen's College. I waited across the street from their apartment building that Saturday, feeling like a criminal stalking my own family. At exactly 2:15, I saw Michael leave with his coaching bag. 20 minutes later, Jennifer emerged in her work clothes. I gave it another hour to be safe, then approached the building. "Mrs. Sullivan!" Maria looked surprised but pleased to see me. "Tommy and Sarah, look who's here." The children's faces lit up with genuine joy, and for a moment, all the hurt and anger melted away. They launched themselves at me with hugs so fierce they nearly knocked me over. "Grandma, we missed you so much. Why haven't you been coming to see us? Daddy said you were sick. Are you feeling better now?" Sick? Of course that's what he'd told them. Not that he'd cut me out of their lives, but that I'd been unable to visit, making himself look like the caring son checking on his ailing mother. "I'm feeling much better now that I've seen you two," I said, which wasn't entirely a lie. We spent an hour together. I helped Sarah with a school project about the solar system. I played Legos with Tommy, building an elaborate spaceship that could travel to Mars. Normal grandparent activities that felt both precious and heartbreaking, knowing they might be my last. When it was time to leave, I asked to use the bathroom. Instead, I slipped into Tommy's bedroom. Guardian sat on his pillow, worn and beloved, one button eye slightly loose from years of cuddles. I found the secret pocket by feel, my fingers remembering the stitches I'd sewn so carefully. The tiny message slipped inside easily, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. "I love you, Guardian," I whispered to the bear, then kissed Tommy's forehead and left. The explosion came 2 days later. My phone rang at 6 in the morning. Michael's ringtone, the one I'd customized with Sarah's giggle from her 3rd birthday party. For a split second, hearing that sound, I thought maybe he was calling to reconcile. Maybe the children had worn him down with questions about Grandma. Maybe he'd realized how much damage he was doing to our family. "What the hell did you do?" His voice was pure fury, the kind of rage that makes your blood freeze in your veins. "Good morning to you too, Michael." "Don't play games with me, Mom. Tommy found your little message. He's been crying for 2 hours asking when you're coming back. Sarah wants to know why we lied about you being sick. You had no right. I had every right. They're my grandchildren. No, they're my children, and I decide who gets to see them." The possessive anger in his voice was chilling. These weren't children he was protecting. They were possessions he was controlling. "And you decided I'm not worthy?" "I decided you're toxic. You manipulate people with money and guilt, and when you don't get your way, you go behind our backs like some kind of stalker." Stalker. Toxic. The words my own son was using to describe me. The woman who'd given him life, raised him alone after his father left, sacrificed her youth and her dreams to give him every opportunity. I left a message telling my grandchildren that I love them. If that makes me toxic in your eyes, then maybe you're the problem, not me. You violated our home. You came into our apartment when we weren't there, and I visited my grandchildren, just like I have hundreds of times before. That was before you started this war. I didn't start anything, Michael. You did when you decided to cut me out of their lives because I wouldn't let you steal from me anymore. The silence that followed was loaded with fury. When he spoke again, his voice was deadly calm. You're never seeing them again. I don't care what it takes. Restraining orders, changing locks, moving to another state. You're done being part of this family. The line went dead. I sat holding my phone, staring at the screen that showed call ended, and felt something inside me break permanently. But along with the breaking came something unexpected: relief. For the first time in years, I knew exactly where I stood. There were no more illusions to maintain, no more hope to cling to that things might get better if I just tried harder, gave more, sacrificed deeper. My son had shown me exactly who he was, and I finally believed him. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I went shopping for myself, not for groceries or necessities, but for pure pleasure. I bought a soft wool sweater in a shade of blue that made my eyes look younger. I bought expensive coffee from a shop in Little Italy, the kind that costs $5 a cup but tastes like heaven. I bought a book of poetry and a small potted orchid for my windowsill. I spent Michael's grocery money, or what would have been Michael's grocery money, on luxuries for the woman who'd forgotten how to treat herself kindly. That evening, I called my neighbor Mrs. Chen, a widow from the apartment next door who'd been inviting me to mahjong games for months. I'd always turned her down because family obligations came first. Mrs. Chen, this is Margaret from 4B. Is that mahjong game still meeting on Thursday nights? Oh, yes. We meet in the community room downstairs. You want to join us? I'd love to. Wonderful. We've been hoping you'd come. Mrs. Rodriguez brings the most amazing empanadas, and Mrs. Washington makes this cake that'll make you forget your troubles. Forget my troubles. When was the last time I'd done anything specifically designed to make me forget my troubles? The mahjong ladies welcomed me like I was a celebrity they'd been waiting to meet. 4 women in their 60s and 70s, each with her own story of family drama and personal reinvention. We played cards and ate empanadas and talked about everything except the children and grandchildren who took us for granted. You know what your problem is, Margaret? Mrs. Rodriguez said after I'd told them a carefully edited version of my story. You think love means saying yes to everything, but real love sometimes means saying no. Mrs. Washington nodded sagely. My daughter used to call me her personal ATM. You know what I did? I changed banks and didn't tell her where. We all laughed at that, the kind of rueful laughter that comes from shared experience. But don't you miss your grandchildren? I asked. Every single day, Mrs. Chen said softly. But I don't miss feeling used. I don't miss wondering if they love me or just my wallet. And you know what's funny? Once I stopped being available whenever they called, they started appreciating the time we do spend together. They came back. Some did, others didn't. But the ones who came back, they came back for the right reasons. The ones who came back for the right reasons. The phrase echoed in my head as I walked home that night, past the late-night delis and the couples walking their dogs, past the familiar landmarks of a neighborhood I'd called home for 15 years. Maybe some bridges were worth burning if they led to places you didn't want to go. Spring came early that year, and with it, a sense of renewal I hadn't felt in decades. I started taking morning walks in Central Park, not rushing to anyone's schedule but my own. I discovered parts of the city I'd lived in for years, but never really explored, because I'd been too busy running from crisis to crisis, emergency to emergency. I joined the senior writing group at the library on 86th Street. We met every Tuesday, A circle of 8 people sharing stories and poems and memories. I wrote about my childhood in Boston, about learning to be a nurse, about the joy of holding my grandchildren when they were babies. I didn't write about the pain, not yet. That wound was still too fresh, too raw for public consumption. But the act of writing itself was healing. Putting words on paper, shaping my experiences into something coherent and meaningful, it reminded me that I had value beyond my usefulness to others. In May, I got a new haircut. Nothing dramatic, but shorter and more stylish than the practical bob I'd worn for 20 years. The stylist, a young man named Carlos with kind eyes and gentle hands, studied my face in the mirror. "You have beautiful cheekbones," he said. "We should show them off more." Beautiful cheekbones. I'd forgotten I had those. The woman who looked back at me from the salon mirror was someone I barely recognized. Still 73, still marked by years of worry and work, but somehow lighter. The permanent frown lines between my eyebrows had softened. My shoulders, always hunched with the weight of other people's problems, sat straighter. "You look 10 years younger," Mrs. Chen said when she saw me at our Thursday night mahjong game. "What's your secret?" "I stopped carrying other people's burdens," I said, and meant it. But late at night, alone in my quiet apartment, I still missed Tommy and Sarah with an ache that felt physical. I missed Sarah's giggle when I told her silly jokes. I missed Tommy's serious face when he was concentrating on a puzzle. I missed being needed, even if that need had been manipulated and exploited. The loneliness was real, and it was deep, and some days it threatened to pull me back into the old patterns of giving too much, accepting too little. That's when Mrs. Washington's words would come back to me. The ones who came back, they came back for the right reasons. Maybe Tommy and Sarah would find their way back to me someday. Maybe they'd grow up and realize that their grandmother had loved them unconditionally, had fought for a place in their lives even when it cost her everything. Or maybe they wouldn't. Maybe Michael's version of events would become their truth, and I'd become a cautionary tale in their family mythology. The grandmother who couldn't accept boundaries, who pushed too hard and lost everything. But even if that happened, even if I never saw them again, I was finally learning to live with myself as the protagonist of my own story, rather than a supporting character in everyone else's. The call came on a humid Tuesday in August. Unknown number, but the area code was familiar. Queens, where Michael lived. I almost didn't answer. I'd learned to protect my peace, to screen out the chaos that had once defined my life. But something made me pick up on the 4th ring. "Hello? Grandma?" The voice was small, uncertain, older than I remembered. "Sarah?" "Yes, it's me. Are you okay?" Such a simple question, but loaded with 4 months of silence and hurt. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Are you?" Her voice broke slightly. "I missed you. Tommy misses you too. We didn't understand why you stopped coming to see us." The careful words of a child who'd been coached, who'd been told a version of events that painted me as the villain. But underneath the caution, I heard genuine longing. "I missed you too, more than you can possibly know. How did you get my number?" I remembered it from when I was little. I used to call you when Mom and Dad were fighting. Yes, she had. Sarah had memorized my phone number when she was 6 years old, proud of herself for being old enough to call Grandma without help. During her parents' divorce, she'd called me at least once a week, usually in tears, seeking comfort from the only adult in her life who seemed to have unlimited time and patience. "Are your parents home, Sarah?" "No, they went to some work thing. Maria's babysitting, but she's watching TV in the living room. I'm calling from Tommy's room." From Tommy's room, where Guardian sat on the pillow, where my secret message had caused such an explosion. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Sarah, I want you to know that I love you and Tommy more than anything in the world. Whatever you've been told about why I haven't been visiting, The most important thing is that my love for you hasn't changed. Daddy said you were angry at us. My heart clenched. Of course he had. Making the children feel responsible. Making them carry the weight of adult conflicts. I'm not angry at you or Tommy. I could never be angry at you. Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements that have nothing to do with children, but the children get caught in the middle. That's what happened here. Are you angry at Daddy? Such a loaded question. How do you tell an 11-year-old that her father has broken your heart, stolen your money, and cut you out of their lives like you were some kind of threat? How do you explain betrayal to a child who still needs to trust her parent? I'm sad about some things that have happened between your daddy and me, but that's for us to work out, not something for you to worry about. I wish you would come back. I wish that too, sweetheart. But right now, that's not possible. Because of the fight? Because your parents need some space right now. But Sarah, I want you to remember something important. No matter what happens, no matter how much time passes, you and Tommy are always welcome in my life. When you're older, you can make your own decisions about who you want to spend time with. How much older? Well, when you turn 18, you'll be an adult and can make all your own choices. But even before that, as you get older, you'll have more say in things. That's so far away. 7 years. It felt like a lifetime, especially to a child. It felt like a lifetime to me, too, at 73, when every year was precious and uncertain. I know it seems far away, but time moves faster than you think, and I'll be here when you're ready. Promise? I promise. We talked for 20 more minutes. Sarah told me about school, about her art class, about a boy she liked who didn't know she existed. Normal grandmother-granddaughter conversation that felt both precious and painful. When we hung up, I cried for the first time in months, not tears of anger or betrayal, but tears of love and loss and hope all mixed together. 2 days later, Michael called. I know you talked to Sarah. She called me. She's 11 years old. She doesn't have the judgment to understand boundaries. She understood that she missed her grandmother. You're manipulating a child. I'm loving a child. There's a difference, though I don't expect you to understand that anymore. The conversation escalated from there into familiar territory. Accusations and counter-accusations, hurt feelings dressed up as moral outrage. But something was different this time. I wasn't begging for his understanding or trying to justify my actions. I wasn't walking on eggshells to avoid his anger. I was simply stating my truth and letting him respond however he chose. If you contact my children again, they're my grandchildren, Michael, and Sarah contacted me, not the other way around. If you encourage them to go behind our backs, I encouraged her to remember that she's loved. If that threatens you, maybe you should ask yourself why. The line went quiet for a long moment. You've changed, he said finally, and it wasn't a compliment. Yes, I have. You used to care about keeping this family together. I still do. But I've learned that sometimes love means letting go of people who don't want to be held. Are you saying you don't want us in your life? Such a loaded question. Was I saying that? After months of anger and hurt and loneliness, was I ready to walk away from my son completely? I'm saying I want people in my life who want me there too. Not people who see me as an ATM or a free babysitting service or someone to blame when their own lives aren't working out. That's not fair. You're right, it's not fair. None of this is fair, but it's what we have. Another long silence. The kids miss you, he said finally, his voice softer than it had been in months. I know. I miss them too. Maybe we could work something out. Supervised visits. Limited contact. Supervised visits, as if I were a criminal being granted parole. Michael, I raised you to be a good man. I gave you everything I had to give. I loved you unconditionally, even when you made mistakes, even when you hurt me. I don't know what happened to that little boy who used to bring me dandelions from the park and tell me I was the best mommy in the world. But I can't keep chasing after someone who sees my love as a burden. Mom, if you want me in your life, if you want me to be part of your children's lives, then you need to treat me with the respect I deserve. Not as a guest who has to earn her welcome, but as a mother and grandmother who loves this family. What does that mean exactly? It means no more supervised visits. It means you stop treating me like I'm some kind of threat to your children. It means you acknowledge that I've done nothing but love you, even when loving you cost me everything. And if we can't agree to that, the question hung between us like a bridge that could be crossed or burned. Then I wish you well, and I hope someday you'll understand what you threw away. I hung up before he could respond. The weeks that followed were some of the most peaceful I'd experienced in years. No drama, no crises, no emergency phone calls asking for money or favors. I settled into a routine that revolved around my own needs and interests for the first time in decades. Morning walks in the park, afternoon writing sessions at the library, Thursday night mahjong with the ladies, weekend trips to museums and bookstores, wandering at my own pace through exhibits and aisles without checking my phone every 5 minutes. I discovered that I liked modern art, something I'd never had time to explore before. I joined a book club that read literary fiction, challenging novels that made me think about life in new ways. I started taking a pottery class at the community college, learning to shape clay with my hands the way I'd once shaped a life around other people's needs. The loneliness was still there, but it felt different now. Not the desperate, clawing loneliness of being surrounded by people who didn't really see you, but the clean, honest loneliness of solitude. I was alone, but I was also finally free. In October, Sarah called again. "Grandma, I'm going to be in a school play. I'm playing Emily in our town." "That's wonderful, sweetheart. You'll be perfect." "Will you come see it? It's next Friday at 7. My heart jumped and then immediately sank. "Sarah, honey, I don't think your parents would want me there. But it's my play. Don't I get to decide who I invite?" Such a mature question from an 11-year-old, and it highlighted the impossible position these children were being put in. "Let me talk to your father about it." "He'll say no." "Maybe. But if I show up without asking, it'll just cause problems for everyone, especially you. Let me try to work something out." I called Michael that evening, steeling myself for another battle. Sarah invited me to her school play. "Mom, we've talked about this. I'm not asking to be invited over for dinner or to babysit. I'm asking to attend my granddaughter's school play. One evening, in a public place, with hundreds of other people." "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why? What exactly are you afraid will happen?" He couldn't answer that question, because the honest answer was that he wasn't afraid of anything except losing control of the narrative he'd created. "I just think it's better if we keep things simple right now." Simple for who? It's certainly not simple for Sarah, who wants her grandmother at her play. It's not simple for Tommy, who still asks about me according to what Sarah tells me. It's only simple for you, because you don't have to face the reality of what you've done to this family. What I've done? You're the one who— Michael, stop. Just for once, stop making me the villain in this story. I know what I did and didn't do. I know I wasn't perfect. But I also know I didn't deserve this. And your children don't deserve to be kept from their grandmother because you can't handle your own guilt. Guilt about what? About taking my money under false pretenses. About lying to your children about why I stopped visiting. About punishing me for finally standing up for myself. The silence stretched so long I thought he might have hung up. "One play," he said finally. "What? You can come to one play, but you sit by yourself and you leave right after. No backstage visits, no dinner afterward, no trying to take the kids home with you." It wasn't the unconditional welcome I'd once dreamed of, but it was something. "Thank you. Don't make me regret this, Mom. As if my mere presence at a school play could somehow damage his children. But I'd take what I could get. The night of Sarah's play, I arrived early and chose a seat in the back corner where I wouldn't be conspicuous. Parents filed in chatting and laughing, carrying flowers and cameras, the normal chaos of a school event. I watched Michael and Jennifer enter with Tommy, looking around nervously as if they expected me to leap out from behind a curtain and cause a scene. When Sarah appeared on stage, my heart nearly burst with pride. She was luminous, confident, her clear voice carrying across the auditorium as she delivered Emily's lines about the preciousness of ordinary moments. The irony wasn't lost on me, watching my granddaughter perform in a play about appreciating what you have while you have it, while sitting alone in the back row because her father had decided I was too dangerous to sit with the family. During intermission, I saw Tommy looking around the auditorium. When his eyes found mine, his whole face lit up and he started to wave before Jennifer quickly pulled his hand down and whispered something in his ear. His confusion was heartbreaking, the look of a child who doesn't understand why loving his grandmother has become complicated. After the play ended, as families swarmed the stage to congratulate their young actors, I slipped out quietly, as I'd promised, but not before Sarah saw me leaving. She broke away from her parents and ran toward the back of the auditorium. "Grandma, did you see it? Did you like it?" "You were magnificent, sweetheart. Absolutely magnificent. I was looking for you during the show, but I couldn't see you. I was here, watching every minute." She hugged me quickly, fiercely, and then looked back toward her parents who were approaching with thunderous expressions. "I have to go," she whispered. "I know. I'm so proud of you, Sarah. Break a leg in the rest of your shows." I left through the back exit before Michael and Jennifer could reach us, but not before I heard Michael's sharp voice calling Sarah's name. She'd be in trouble for that hug, for that moment of pure, uncomplicated love between grandmother and granddaughter. The thought made me sick. 2 weeks later, my phone rang at 11 o'clock at night. Michael's number, which was unusual. He never called that late unless something was wrong. "Mom, we're at the hospital." My heart stopped. What happened? Is it one of the kids? Tommy fell off his bike and hit his head. He's okay. But they want to keep him overnight for observation. Jennifer's with him, and Sarah's with Jennifer's mother. Which hospital? Mount Sinai, Queens. But Mom, you don't need to come. He's fine, really. Just a precaution. He's my grandson, Michael. Of course I need to come. Mom, please, don't make this harder than it has to be. How would my being there make it harder? I'm not going to cause problems. I'm going to sit quietly and make sure my grandson is okay. Because when he sees you, he's going to get confused again about why you haven't been around. The doctors said he needs to stay calm. The manipulation was breathtaking. Using Tommy's medical condition to keep me away, making me the threat to his well-being. I'll stay in the waiting room. I won't even let him know I'm there if that's what you prefer. But I'm coming. I hung up and called a cab, throwing on clothes and grabbing my purse and keys. During the 20-minute ride to Queens, I tried not to think about all the times I'd rushed to hospitals for Michael when he was growing up. The broken arm from falling out of a tree, the allergic reaction to peanuts that we didn't know he had, the appendicitis that struck at 2 in the morning when he was 15. I'd been the one calling the ambulance, holding his hand in the emergency room, sitting vigil by his bedside. And now he was trying to keep me from doing the same for his son. The pediatric ward at Mount Sinai was quiet when I arrived, just the hum of machines and the soft voices of night shift nurses. I found Michael in the family waiting area, looking exhausted and worried. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "I told you I was coming. I told you not to. And I told you he's my grandson. How is he?" Michael looked like he wanted to argue further, but exhaustion won out. "He's sleeping. Mild concussion, but the CT scan was normal. They just want to monitor him until morning." And Jennifer? She's in the room with him. She's pretty upset. Of course she was. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy for her. Whatever our conflicts, she loved Tommy and was probably terrified. Can I see him? Just for a minute? Mom, I don't think… Michael, please. I won't wake him up. I just need to see with my own eyes that he's okay. Something in my voice must have gotten through to him because he nodded reluctantly. 5 minutes. And if Jennifer asks you to leave, you leave. Tommy's room was dimly lit, machines beeping softly in the background. He looked so small in the big hospital bed, a bandage on his forehead, his dark hair tousled against the white pillow. Jennifer sat in a chair beside him, holding his hand, her face streaked with dried tears. She looked up when we entered, and I saw her whole body tense. What is she doing here? I asked Michael if I could see Tommy for just a minute. I was worried. Well, as you can see, he's fine. You can go now. The hostility in her voice was jarring in the quiet of the hospital room. Here was a child lying injured, and she was more concerned with keeping me away than with accepting comfort from someone who loved him. But as I looked at Tommy's sleeping face, I realized something profound. My love for him didn't depend on Jennifer's permission or Michael's approval. It existed independently, purely, without conditions or requirements. I'm glad he's okay, I said quietly. If you need anything, if either of you need anything, please don't hesitate to call. I kissed my fingertips and gently touched Tommy's forehead, the only grandmotherly gesture I could manage under the circumstances. Then I left without another word. In the elevator, Michael caught up with me. Mom, wait. What? Thank you for coming, and for not making it into a big thing. Such a small acknowledgement, but it felt like a crack in the wall he'd built between us. He's my grandson, Michael. I'll always come when he needs me, whether you want me to or not. I know, and I appreciate that. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. Christmas approached with its usual mix of anticipation and dread. My first Christmas in 20 years without grandchildren to buy presents for, without a family dinner to attend, without the chaos and joy of little voices and torn wrapping paper. The loneliness felt especially sharp during the holiday season. The city was full of families shopping together, children pressed against store windows looking at displays, the kind of intergenerational togetherness I'd once taken for granted. Mrs. Chen invited me to spend Christmas Eve with her daughter's family in Chinatown, and I almost said yes. But at the last minute, I decided to embrace the solitude instead of running from it. I bought myself a small Christmas tree from the vendor on the corner. Nothing fancy, but real and fragrant. I decorated it with ornaments I'd collected over the years, some handmade by Sarah and Tommy when they were smaller, some purchased during happier times when our family was intact. On Christmas morning, I made myself a special breakfast: fresh orange juice, eggs Benedict, real maple syrup on pancakes. I opened the presents I'd bought for myself: a cashmere scarf, a beautiful art book, expensive lotions that smelled like lavender and peace. It was the quietest Christmas of my adult life, and surprisingly, it was also one of the most peaceful. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, my phone rang. Sarah's voice, bright with Christmas excitement. "Grandma! Merry Christmas!" "Merry Christmas, sweetheart. How was Santa to you?" "Really good. I got art supplies and new clothes, and Tommy got a remote control car that he's already crashed into everything." I could hear Tommy in the background making car noises, the sound of a child completely absorbed in play. "That sounds wonderful. Are you having a good day?" "Yeah, but…" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I wish you were here. Christmas doesn't feel right without you." The simple honesty of that statement brought tears to my eyes. "I wish I was there too, sweetheart." "Why can't you come over? It's Christmas." How do you explain to an 11-year-old that her parents have decided you're persona non grata? How do you tell a child that love isn't always enough to overcome adult stubbornness and hurt feelings? Sometimes grown-ups make things more complicated than they need to be, Sarah. But I want you to know that I'm thinking about you and Tommy today. And I love you both very much. I love you too, Grandma. Can I call you again tomorrow? You can call me anytime you want to, as long as it's okay with your parents. Tommy wants to say hi. Before I could respond, I heard the phone being passed and then Tommy's voice, higher and more excited than his sister's. Grandma, I got a car, and it goes really fast. That sounds amazing, sweetheart. Are you being careful with it? Yeah, mostly. I only crashed it a little bit. Daddy says I need to practice more. Practice makes perfect. Are you having fun today? Yeah, but I miss you. When are you coming to see us again? The question I'd been dreading, asked with the innocent directness of an 8-year-old. I don't know, Tommy. But I miss you too, very much. Maybe Santa will bring you back for my birthday. When's your birthday again? February 14th! Valentine's Day! I'm gonna be 9. 9 years old. I'd missed so many milestones already, and I was facing the possibility of missing many more. That's very special, having a birthday on Valentine's Day. Yeah, 'cause it's the day for love, and I love everybody. The simple wisdom of a child. February 14th, the day for love, and he loved everybody. I love you too, Tommy. You and Sarah are two of my very favorite people in the whole world. We're gonna make you a Valentine. Sarah's really good at art now. I would love that more than anything. The phone was passed again, and I heard Michael's voice in the background, telling the children it was time to end the call. Sarah came back on the line. I have to go now, but I'll call you soon, okay? Okay, sweetheart. Have a wonderful rest of your Christmas. After they hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment, listening to the hum of the city outside and feeling the strange mixture of joy and sadness that comes with being loved by people you're not allowed to see. But something had shifted during that call. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely hopeful. Not because I expected Michael to suddenly change his mind, but because I realized that love doesn't require proximity. Tommy and Sarah loved me, and I loved them, and that love existed independent of their parents' approval. It would have to be enough. The Valentine arrived on February 10th, 4 days before Tommy's birthday. A large manila envelope with my name written in Sarah's careful cursive and Tommy's exuberant printing. Inside were 2 handmade cards, Sarah's an intricate collage of hearts and flowers with "I love you, Grandma" spelled out in glitter glue, and Tommy's a crayon drawing of 3 figures holding hands under a rainbow. The figures were labeled me, Sarah, and Grandma. There was also a note from Sarah. Dear Grandma, we made these at school during art class. Tommy insisted we mail them to you even though Mom said we should wait and ask Dad first. But Tommy said Valentine's Day is about love, and we love you, so we should send them. I hope you like them. Love, Sarah and Tommy. I cried reading that note. Happy tears and sad tears all mixed together. These children, despite everything, despite months of separation and adult manipulation, still loved their grandmother enough to defy their parents' wishes and make sure I knew it. I called them that evening, Tommy's birthday, expecting to get Michael's voicemail or Jennifer's sharp dismissal. Instead, Tommy answered the phone himself. Hello? Happy birthday, sweetheart. Grandma, how did you know it was my birthday? Because I could never forget the birthday of my favorite 9-year-old Valentine. I'm at Chuck E. Cheese. We're having my party here. Chuck E. Cheese, the chaos of arcade games and screaming children and animatronic singing animals. The kind of place I'd taken Michael for his birthdays when he was small, and later Sarah and Tommy when they were younger. That sounds like so much fun. Are you having a good time? Yeah, and Grandma, guess what? I made a wish when I blew out my candles. What did you wish for? I'm not supposed to tell, or it won't come true. But it's something I want really, really bad. I had a feeling I knew what that wish might have been. Well, I hope it comes true, birthday boy. Me too. Oh, Daddy wants to talk to you. Before I could respond, I heard the phone being passed and then Michael's voice, tight with barely controlled anger. Mom, how did you get this number? What do you mean? It's your cell phone, the same number you've had for 3 years. Tommy wasn't supposed to answer the phone. Well, he did, and I called to wish him happy birthday, which I think I have the right to do. We've talked about this. We agreed on boundaries. We agreed that I could come to one school play and then leave immediately. We never agreed that I couldn't call my grandson on his birthday. The kids got confused when they got your Valentine cards. Tommy's been asking non-stop when you're coming to visit. And what have you told him? That it's complicated. It's only complicated because you've made it complicated, Michael. This could all end tomorrow if you decided to act like a grown-up instead of a petulant child. I'm not the one who... Yes, you are. You're exactly the one. You're the one who chose to punish your children because you're angry at me. You're the one who's put them in the middle of an adult conflict they shouldn't have to navigate. I'm protecting them. From what? From being loved by their grandmother? From having another adult in their lives who cares about them unconditionally? From having their emotions manipulated by someone who uses love as a weapon? The accusation hit like a physical blow. Using love as a weapon. Is that really how he saw my devotion to his children? I have never, ever used feelings to hurt Tommy or Sarah. The only person doing that is you. I have to go. We're in the middle of a party. Michael, wait. Can I just say one thing to Tommy? Can I just tell him I love him on his birthday? The pause was so long I thought he might have hung up. 30 seconds. Tommy's voice came back on the line, breathless with excitement. Grandma, I ate so much pizza. That's wonderful, sweetheart. I just wanted to tell you that I love you very much, and I hope you have the most amazing birthday ever. I love you too, and Sarah says to tell you she loves you too. Tell her I love her right back. Have fun with the rest of your party, okay? Okay. Bye, Grandma. The line went dead, and I sat holding the phone, my heart full of love and longing and frustration all at once. That night, I made a decision that surprised even me. I was going to stop waiting for Michael's permission to be part of his children's lives. Not in a confrontational way, not by violating boundaries or causing scenes, but by simply being available when they needed me and letting them know they were loved. If that meant occasional phone calls that made Michael angry, so be it. If that meant birthday cards and holiday gifts sent directly to the children, so be it. If that meant showing up at public events where they might be present, so be it. I'd spent almost a year walking on eggshells, trying to prove I could be trusted with limited access to my own grandchildren. But the harder I tried to be the perfect, non-threatening grandmother, the more restrictions were placed on me. It was time to stop negotiating with emotional terrorists. Spring arrived early again, and with it came unexpected news. Mrs. Chen knocked on my door one Thursday evening, her face flushed with excitement. Margaret, you'll never guess what happened today. What? I ran into your daughter-in-law at the grocery store, the pretty one with the blonde hair. My heart sank. Jennifer shopping in our neighborhood probably meant nothing good. Did she say anything to you? Oh yes, we had quite a conversation. She asked how you were doing, said the children miss you terribly. She seemed very sad about the whole situation. This was unexpected. In all our conflicts, Jennifer had been the more rigid of the two parents, the more insistent on boundaries and protection. What exactly did she say? She asked if I thought you were okay living alone, if you seemed lonely. I told her you'd been keeping busy with your writing and your art classes, but that, of course, you missed the children. She almost started crying right there in the produce section. I tried to process this information. Was Jennifer having second thoughts about the estrangement? Was she beginning to see the cost of keeping the children from their grandmother? Did she say anything about possibly visiting? Or about me seeing Tommy and Sarah? Not exactly. But she did ask if I thought you would be open to having a conversation. A real conversation, she said, not just fighting about who was right and who was wrong. And what did you tell her? I told her you were one of the kindest, most reasonable people I'd ever met, and that you'd probably be open to any conversation that was genuinely aimed at healing this family. Mrs. Chen's faith in me was touching but possibly misplaced. I wasn't sure I was ready for another round of negotiations and conditions and supervised visits. But for Tommy and Sarah, I'd try anything. The call came 2 days later. Jennifer's voice, hesitant and uncertain. Margaret? It's Jennifer. I hope it's okay that I'm calling. Of course it's okay. How are you? I'm struggling. Honestly. The kids ask about you constantly. Tommy's teacher said he wrote a story about his grandmother for a school assignment, and when she asked him to read it aloud, he started crying because he said his grandmother lives far away now. The image of Tommy crying about me in front of his class was heartbreaking. I'm not far away, Jennifer. I'm 20 minutes on the subway. I know. That's why I'm calling. I think we made a mistake. Such a simple statement, but it felt monumental coming from her. What kind of mistake? Cutting you out completely. I know you and Michael had your problems, and I know there were issues with money and boundaries, but watching what this is doing to Tommy and Sarah, it's not worth it. What does Michael think about you calling me? He doesn't know, and honestly, I'm not sure he'd approve. He's still pretty angry about everything that happened. And you're not? A long pause. I'm tired, Margaret. I'm tired of being the bad guy who won't let the children see their grandmother. I'm tired of explaining to their teachers and their friends why Grandma Margaret doesn't come to school events anymore. I'm tired of watching my children hurt. Her honesty was unexpected and disarming. What are you proposing? I want to start small. Maybe you could take Sarah shopping for school clothes next weekend? Just the two of you for a few hours. And if that goes well, maybe Tommy could join you for lunch the following weekend. It wasn't everything I wanted, but it was more than I'd had in almost a year. What about Michael? Won't he be furious when he finds out? Probably, but I think once he sees how happy the kids are, he'll come around. And if he doesn't, well, we'll deal with that when we get to it. Jennifer, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Do you really think I'm a threat to Tommy and Sarah? Do you genuinely believe I would do anything to hurt them or manipulate them? Another long pause. No. I don't think you're a threat. I think you're a grandmother who loves her grandchildren and made some mistakes in how you handled conflicts with their father. But I also think Michael and I made mistakes in how we handled it too. It was the closest thing to an apology I was likely to get, and it felt like enough. I would love to take Sarah shopping. When were you thinking? Next Saturday? I could drop her off at the mall around noon and pick her up at 4? That sounds perfect. 4 hours alone with my granddaughter. 4 hours to reestablish our relationship without walking on eggshells or watching every word for fear of causing offense. It felt like a miracle. Saturday morning, I woke up before dawn with excitement and nerves battling in my stomach. I'd barely slept, planning and replanning our afternoon together. What if Sarah had changed during our months apart? What if she was angry at me for the separation? What if Jennifer changed her mind at the last minute? But at exactly noon, Jennifer's car pulled up outside the mall entrance, and Sarah jumped out with a bright smile and a hug that nearly knocked me over. Grandma, I can't believe it's really happening. I can't believe it either, sweetheart. Are you ready to find some beautiful new clothes for school? Yes, and Mom said we could get ice cream too if we want. Ice cream is definitely on the agenda. Jennifer rolled down her window. I'll be back at 4. You two have fun. And Sarah, remember to be good for Grandma. I will. As Jennifer drove away, Sarah slipped her hand into mine, and I felt a year's worth of tension and heartache begin to dissolve. We spent the afternoon like any grandmother and granddaughter might, trying on clothes, debating between sneakers and sandals, sharing a huge banana split at the food court. Sarah told me about school, about her friends, about the boy she'd had a crush on in 6th grade who turned out to be totally immature. But she also told me about the harder things, about feeling confused when I suddenly stopped visiting, about Tommy crying himself to sleep some nights because he missed me, about feeling caught in the middle of something she didn't understand. "I knew you and Daddy were fighting about something," she said, swirling chocolate sauce around her ice cream. "But I didn't know why it meant I couldn't see you anymore. Adults sometimes make problems more complicated than they need to be," I said carefully. "Your father and I had some disagreements about adult things, but that should never have affected my relationship with you and Tommy. Are you still mad at him?" Such a perceptive question from a 12-year-old. "I'm sad about some of the choices he made, but I'm not interested in staying angry forever. Life's too short, and there are too many beautiful things to focus on instead." "Like shopping with your granddaughter?" "Exactly, like shopping with your granddaughter." When Jennifer came to pick up Sarah at 4 o'clock, my granddaughter was loaded down with shopping bags and glowing with happiness. "Did you have fun?" Jennifer asked. "The best time ever. Grandma let me pick out whatever I wanted and we got our nails done, and she told me stories about when Daddy was little." "That sounds wonderful. Did you thank Grandma properly?" "Thank you so much, Grandma. Can we do this again soon?" "I hope so, sweetheart." As they drove away, Sarah pressed her face to the back window and waved until the car disappeared around a corner. I stood in the parking lot feeling more complete than I had in months. 2 days later, Jennifer called again. "Margaret, I can't thank you enough for Saturday. Sarah hasn't stopped talking about it, and she seems like herself again for the first time in months." "It was my pleasure. She's grown up so much." "She has, and Margaret, I told Michael about the shopping trip." My heart stopped. "How did he take it?" "He was angry at first. But when he saw how happy Sarah was, when he heard her laughing and telling Tommy all about your day together, I think it made him realize what we've been doing to them. And he's agreed to let Tommy go to lunch with you this weekend. Just lunch, just the two of you. Baby steps. Baby steps, but steps nonetheless, in the right direction. I would love that more than anything. There's one condition, though." My heart sank. There were always conditions. "What?" "He wants to talk to you first, just the two of you, before you take Tommy anywhere. He says there are things that need to be said. A conversation with Michael." The thought filled me with equal parts hope and dread. What if he used it as an opportunity to list all my failures as a mother and grandmother? What if he set impossible conditions on my relationship with the children? But what if he didn't? What if he was finally ready to acknowledge his own role in this mess and work toward a genuine reconciliation? "When does he want to talk?" "Tomorrow evening if you're free." He suggested meeting at that coffee shop on West 79th Street, the one near your apartment. The same diner where we used to have our weekly family lunches before everything fell apart. The symbolism felt intentional. "I'll be there." "What time?" 7 o'clock. After Jennifer hung up, I spent the rest of the evening preparing for what felt like the most important conversation of my life. Not just my relationship with Michael, but my future with Tommy and Sarah hung in the balance. I arrived at the diner 15 minutes early and chose a booth in the back corner where we could talk privately. The familiar smell of coffee and bacon brought back memories of happier times. Tommy stacking sugar packets while Sarah colored on paper placemats. Michael actually smiling and laughing with his children instead of checking his phone every 5 minutes. He walked in at exactly 7 o'clock, looking older and more tired than I remembered. The past year had aged both of us. "Hi, Mom." "Hello, Michael." He slid into the booth across from me, and for a moment we just looked at each other. My son, the man I'd raised alone, the child I'd sacrificed everything for, sitting across from me like a stranger. "Thank you for coming," he said finally. "Thank you for asking me to." The waitress came and took our orders, coffee for both of us, pie that neither of us would eat. When she left, silence settled over our table like fog. Jennifer told me about Saturday, he said. Sarah had a wonderful time. I hope she told you that. She did. She hasn't stopped talking about it. He stirred his coffee absently. I'd forgotten what she sounds like when she's truly happy. She's an amazing girl. They both are. You should be proud. I am proud, but I'm also... He struggled for the words. I'm also ashamed of myself. The admission hung between us like a bridge that could be crossed or burned. What are you ashamed of? Of what I've put them through. Of what I've put you through. Of the man I became when I was supposed to be protecting my family. It was more honesty than I'd heard from him in years. Michael. No, let me finish. I need to say this. He looked directly at me for the first time since sitting down. You were right about the money. I did take it under false pretenses. And you were right about cutting you off from the kids being cruel and unnecessary. What changed your mind? Watching Tommy cry himself to sleep because he missed his grandmother. Seeing Sarah withdraw into herself. Losing the confidence and joy she used to have. Realizing that in trying to protect them from what I saw as your interference, I was actually harming them. I never wanted to interfere, Michael. I just wanted to love them. I know that now. I knew it then too, if I'm being honest. But I was angry and hurt, and I felt judged every time you offered to help or made suggestions about how to handle things. Why didn't you just tell me that instead of cutting me out of their lives? He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. Because it was easier to make you the problem than to deal with my own failures. Easier to tell myself you were controlling and manipulative than to admit I was a grown man who couldn't support his family without his mother's help. The honesty was brutal and beautiful at the same time. You're not a failure, Michael. Being a parent is hard. Being a husband is hard. Nobody gets it right all the time. But some of us don't lie to our mothers and steal their grocery money to pay for vacations. No, you don't. But you also don't usually keep their grandchildren away from them for a year because you're too proud to apologize. We sat in silence again, the weight of all the hurt and anger and love between us settling like sediment in still water. I want to fix this, he said finally. I want Tommy and Sarah to have their grandmother back. I want us to be a family again. What does that look like to you? I don't know yet, but I know it starts with me saying I'm sorry. I'm sorry for taking your money dishonestly. I'm sorry for keeping the children away from you. I'm sorry for making you out to be the villain when I was the one who created this mess. The apology I'd been waiting for almost a year. It didn't erase the pain or undo the damage, but it was a beginning. I'm sorry too, I said. I'm sorry if I was too controlling, too involved, too ready to offer help that felt like criticism. I'm sorry if my love sometimes felt like pressure. It didn't, Mom. Your love never felt like pressure. My inability to accept help with grace. That was my problem, not yours. I reached across the table and took his hand, and for the first time in over a year, he didn't pull away. So, where do we go from here? I'd like you to take Tommy to lunch this Saturday, like Jennifer suggested, just the two of you, so he can start to trust that you're going to be in his life consistently. And after that? After that, we take it one day at a time. Maybe Sunday dinners here, like we used to do. Maybe birthday parties and school plays without me hovering in the corner afraid you're going to cause a scene. I never caused scenes, Michael. I know. I was projecting my own anxiety onto you. You were always appropriate with the kids, always respectful of our rules, even when you disagreed with them. Such a simple acknowledgement, but it felt like absolution. Does this mean I can call them again? Send birthday cards and Christmas presents? It means you can be their grandmother again, however that looks. No more supervised visits or limited contact hours. Just family. Just family. The phrase I'd been longing to hear for almost a year. We talked for another hour, working through logistics and expectations, addressing the practical questions of rebuilding trust and re-establishing relationships. But more than that, we talked like mother and son for the first time in years. Honestly, openly, without defensiveness or accusation. When we finally left the diner, Michael hugged me goodbye, and I felt the last of the ice around my heart begin to melt. Saturday lunch with Tommy was everything I'd hoped it would be, and more. He chattered nonstop about school, about friends, about the remote control car he'd gotten for Christmas that was now missing 2 wheels and a bumper from various crashes. "Grandma, I missed you so much," he said over grilled cheese and chocolate milk. "I kept asking Daddy when you were coming back, and he said it was complicated, but I don't understand what was so complicated about it." "Sometimes grown-ups make things more difficult than they need to be," I said, echoing what I'd told Sarah. "But the important thing is that I'm here now and I'm not going anywhere again. Promise. I promise." He grinned and took another bite of his sandwich, and I felt the last piece of my broken heart slide back into place. That evening, Michael called to check how our lunch had gone. He said it was the best day he'd had in forever, I told him. He told me the same thing. "Mom, I can't tell you how good it is to see him happy again." "It's good to see all of you happy again. Would you like to join us for dinner on Sunday? Nothing fancy, just family dinner at our place." Family dinner at their place. The invitation I'd been hoping for since this whole nightmare began. I would love that more than anything. "Good, come at 5. And Mom?" "Yes?" "Welcome home." Welcome home. I sat in my quiet apartment after we hung up, surrounded by the life I'd built during my year of exile, my art books, my writing notebooks, my pottery projects, my independent routines, and realized something profound. I was going home to my family, but I wasn't going back to being the woman I was before. The year of separation, as painful as it had been, had taught me things about my own strength, my own worth, my own capacity for happiness that existed independent of other people's approval. I could love Michael and Tommy and Sarah with my whole heart without losing myself in that love. I could be a devoted mother and grandmother without being a doormat. I could offer help and support without accepting disrespect in return. Most importantly, I'd learned that love without boundaries isn't actually love at all. It's need disguised as generosity, fear dressed up as devotion. The woman who would walk into Michael's apartment on Sunday evening would be the same woman who'd been exiled a year ago, but stronger, wiser, more sure of her own value and less willing to compromise her dignity for the illusion of harmony. Sunday dinner was everything I'd dreamed it would be during the darkest moments of our estrangement. Tommy and Sarah fought over who got to sit next to me. Sarah showed me her latest art projects. Tommy demonstrated his improved skills with the now 3-wheeled remote control car. Jennifer and I chatted about her work, her book club, normal conversation between family members. And Michael smiled, really smiled, without the tension and defensive anger that had marked our interactions for so long. "Mom, I've been thinking," he said over dessert. "What would you think about keeping the kids occasionally on Friday nights? Like we used to do before? Before you decided I was persona non grata?" He had the grace to look embarrassed. "Yeah, before that. I would love Friday night sleepovers, but only if everyone is genuinely comfortable with it, not because anyone feels obligated." "We all want it," Sarah said emphatically. "Right, Tommy?" "Yeah, can we make pancakes in the morning like we used to?" "Of course we can make pancakes. Blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup." "Yes." As I looked around the table at these faces I loved so much, I felt a sense of completion I'd never expected to experience again. Not just because we were together, but because we were together on terms that honored everyone's dignity and autonomy. 6 months later, our new normal has settled into something sustainable and beautiful. Tommy and Sarah spend most Friday nights at my apartment, and we've fallen back into our old routines of baking and crafts and bedtime stories. But now there's an ease to it that wasn't there before. No walking on eggshells, no unspoken tensions, no feeling like I have to buy their love with presents and privileges. Michael and I talk regularly, and while our relationship will probably never be what it was when he was small, it's honest now in a way it never was before. He asks for advice sometimes, and I give it. He asks for help occasionally, and I offer it. Or I don't, depending on what feels right for everyone involved. I still have my Thursday night mahjong games, my writing group, my art classes, my independent life built during the year of exile. Instead of being something I retreat to when family life becomes overwhelming, these activities are part of who I am now. Not just Michael's mother or Tommy and Sarah's grandmother, but Margaret, a woman with her own interests and friendships and pursuits. The money Michael took was never repaid, and I never asked for it back. Not because I didn't deserve it, but because I realized that demanding restitution would have been about punishment rather than healing. The lesson was more valuable than the cash. But there are boundaries now that didn't exist before. I help when asked and when it feels right, but I don't offer money to solve every problem. I give advice when requested, but I don't insert myself into decisions that aren't mine to make. I love freely and completely, but I also love myself enough to expect respect in return. Last week, Tommy asked me why I stopped coming to see them for so long last year. Your father and I had some disagreements about grown-up things, I told him, which was true as far as it went. But we worked it out because family is too important to stay angry forever. Are you ever going to go away again? Not unless I have to, sweetheart. And if I ever do, you'll always know how to find me. That seemed to satisfy him, and he went back to building an elaborate Lego structure that would probably be destroyed and rebuilt 17 times before bedtime. Sarah, now 13 and more perceptive than ever, cornered me later while Tommy was watching television. Grandma, I know there was more to it than just disagreements. What do you mean? I mean, I remember that time you found the bank papers, and I remember Dad looking really guilty and angry. And I remember Mom crying a lot during that time. Such a bright, observant girl. I should have known she'd put the pieces together. You're right, there was more to it. But the details aren't important anymore. What's important is that we all learned some valuable lessons about how to treat each other. What kind of lessons? That loving someone doesn't give you the right to take advantage of them. That family members should respect each other, not just love each other. That sometimes you have to be willing to lose someone temporarily in order to have a real relationship with them permanently. She considered this seriously, the way she considered everything. Is that why you stopped letting Dad walk all over you? I didn't think of it as letting him walk all over me at the time. I thought of it as being a good mother. But there's a difference? Yes, sweetheart, there's a difference. Being a good mother means loving your child unconditionally, but not accepting disrespectful treatment. It means helping when you can, but not enabling bad behavior. It means being there for your family, but not losing yourself in the process. That sounds complicated. It is complicated, but most worthwhile things are. She hugged me then, one of those fierce adolescent hugs that communicates everything without words. As I write this, sitting in my apartment on a quiet Sunday evening, I can hear the city humming with life outside my window. Car horns and sirens, the distant sound of music from a restaurant down the street, the comforting urban symphony that has been the soundtrack of my adult life. On my desk sits a photo from Tommy's 9th birthday party last month, all of us together around a chocolate cake, faces lit by candles and joy. Sarah has her arm around my shoulders. Tommy is making bunny ears behind Michael's head. Jennifer is laughing at something someone said just as the photo was taken. We look like a normal, happy family, and in many ways we are. But I know something now that I didn't know when that photo was taken last year, or the year before. Happiness isn't the absence of conflict or the presence of constant harmony. Real happiness, lasting happiness, comes from authentic relationships built on mutual respect and genuine love. The year I spent in exile, as painful as it was, taught me more about myself and my own worth than decades of people-pleasing ever did. It taught me that I could survive being unwanted, being rejected, being punished for standing up for myself. It taught me that my value as a person didn't depend on being needed by people who took me for granted. Most importantly, it taught me that love, real love, doesn't require you to diminish yourself to make others feel comfortable. If you've lived through something similar, if you've found yourself wondering whether you're asking for too much when you ask for basic respect and dignity, if you've been made to feel guilty for having boundaries and expectations, I want you to know that you're not alone. I want you to know that it's possible to reclaim your worth without losing the people you love, though it might require temporarily losing them to save the relationship. And if you haven't lived through this yourself, but you recognize someone in your life who has, a parent, a grandparent, a friend who gives and gives and gives without ever receiving the respect they deserve, I hope my story helps you see them differently. I hope it helps you understand that kindness and generosity aren't infinite resources, and that even the most loving people have limits. The message I hid in Tommy's teddy bear that day, the one that made Michael panic when it was discovered, said simply that I loved my grandchildren and hoped to see them again someday. Such a small thing, really, but it represented something larger. My refusal to disappear quietly, my insistence on maintaining connection even when connection was forbidden. That message was my declaration that love doesn't require permission, that relationships can't be controlled by third parties, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable destructive behavior. It was my way of saying, I will not be erased from the lives of people I love, even if loving them costs me everything. The panic Michael felt when that message was discovered wasn't really about the message itself, I realize now. It was about the recognition that he couldn't control the narrative completely, couldn't make me disappear just because my presence made him uncomfortable with his own choices. It was the panic of someone who suddenly realized that actions have consequences, that relationships are built on mutual respect, and that love without accountability eventually becomes something else entirely. Today, almost 2 years after this whole ordeal began, I'm in a better place than I ever imagined possible during those dark months of separation. I have my family back, but I also have myself back. I have relationships built on honesty rather than obligation, love expressed through respect rather than compliance. I still send Tommy and Sarah birthday cards and Christmas presents. I still attend school plays and soccer games. I still help with homework and provide emergency babysitting when needed. But I do these things from a position of strength rather than desperation, as gifts freely given rather than payments demanded for acceptance. And Michael has become the man I always hoped he could be. Not perfect, not without flaws, but honest about his mistakes and committed to being better. He's learned to ask for help without manipulation, to accept support without resentment, to disagree without demonizing. Most importantly, he's learned that being a good father doesn't require him to be a perfect son, and that accepting his mother's love doesn't diminish his authority as a parent. The teddy bear, guardian, still sits on Tommy's bed. The secret pocket where I hid that fateful message now holds a smooth stone from our last trip to Central Park, a ticket stub from the Yankees game Michael took him to last month, and a photo of the 4 of us, Tommy, Sarah, Michael, and me, from Sarah's 13th birthday party. Treasures. Little mementos of a childhood that includes his grandmother. Of a family that learned to love each other better by almost losing each other completely. Sometimes the most precious things in life are the ones we almost lose. Sometimes the deepest love grows from the soil of temporary separation. Sometimes you have to be willing to walk away in order to find your way home. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where love felt like a battlefield, where caring deeply seemed to cost everything you had to give? Have you ever had to choose between being treated with respect and maintaining relationships with people you loved? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience matters. Your strength inspires others. Your healing contributes to the healing of everyone who reads these words. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that you deserve love, that doesn't require you to sacrifice your dignity, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. It helps me continue sharing these stories of pain and redemption, these testimonies to the resilience of the human heart. Because if we don't tell our stories, the difficult ones, the complicated ones, the ones that don't have simple answers or perfect endings, who will? And if we don't learn from each other's struggles and triumphs, how will we find the courage to demand the love we deserve and give the love that heals? Thank you for listening. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for being part of a community that believes in the power of authentic love, healthy boundaries, and second chances. Thank you for reminding me that I'm not alone in this beautiful, complicated, sometimes heartbreaking, always worthwhile journey of being human.